Yeah, it's mindset cafe, we all about that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devan, and today I want to talk about something I hear a lot in the gym, as well as just, in life, really. And I'm sure you guys have heard this too. Oh, I need a rest, or I need a vacation, right? And I'm not saying that you don't, or whoever's saying it doesn't, right? Rest does help in some cases, right? Rest helps you come back stronger. But are you resting or are you escaping? Because if you're escaping, the escape only helps you avoid coming back at all, right? And they look the same on the outside, right? Taking a day off, sleeping in, watching Netflix or scrolling on your phone, maybe skipping the gym or canceling plans, maybe ignoring work for a little bit, right? But the difference is what happens after, right? Real rest restores your standards, where when you escape, it lowers it. So here's the thing. A lot of people say they're resting or they need a rest, but they're not actually resting. They're just escaping. And this is something that you gotta know within yourself, why you're saying it or why you are thinking that way, right? And again, I'm not saying that you don't need a rest. You do. Everybody does. But if you're constantly running on E, eventually something breaks, right? The big difference, though, is between the two, like resting and escaping, is taking a break so you can recover, or you can come back stronger or come back refreshed, or taking a break because you don't want to face what needs to be handled. And don't get me wrong, I've done both, right? I'm not perfect. I know you've done both. And the biggest thing is acknowledging the fact if you're escaping, so that you can realize, okay, I know I need to do this. I'm avoiding it. I need to get it done, whether it's right now or in a day or in a week. Why not just get it done right now, right? When you rest, it does help you, right? It helps you recover physically, right? It'll make you come back thinking clear, maybe even regulate some of your emotions, right? Or come back even sharper. But actually, I'll give you some examples, right? A true rest day from the gym, for example, right? It helps your body recover so that you can come back and train harder tomorrow or the next day, right? Closing the laptop at a reasonable time helps you make better decisions on the next time you open the laptop, maybe the next day, right? Or in an hour, right? Taking space before a hard conversation helps you respond a little bit better, a little bit clearer, instead of just reacting emotionally. And I want to say, all three of those come from my own personal examples, right? Understand, when you do train, your body does need a rest, right? If you're sore, if you're injured, or if you're feeling a little twinge in your shoulder, whatever the case may be, let it rest, let it recover, right? So you can come back and train harder. Because if you're just I just need to power through it, #no days off, it's okay, cool, but you're not solving a problem, you're just making it worse. And so you training harder the next day isn't really the hardest you can train. It's the hardest you can train because of your limitation, because you're running on E. You're running on fumes, right? I have 2 little kids, so the closing the laptop thing, again, I'm not perfect. I don't do it every single day. But even yesterday, for example, I definitely could have spent a little more time working, but I wanted to go spend time with the family and stuff. So, close the laptop when I knew that everyone would be home, and so that I could let the stresses of everything I was doing kind of settle. I can come back clearer the next day, And now I get to not escape, but, go spend some quality time with the family, right? I've had employees in the past, right? Even trainers at other gyms when I was a manager of, other trainers at other gyms, right? And this is something I learned not in the beginning, I will say that. This is something over time that I learned is like sometimes taking space or giving yourself a second to think about the conversation that you're about to have, because it's a hard conversation, helps you respond in a more clear, in a more professional, quote unquote, manner, right? Because I'm short-tempered, right? And definitely worked on that over the years. And they say it's, the Cuban temper and whatever the case may be, but at the end of the day, it's all a choice. And so instead of reacting immediately and going off emotion, it's like, okay, well, why am I pissed? Why am I, why do I want to blow up on this person? So, okay, think about it so that you can respond so the person receives the message even better, right? So taking that second, giving a little space, like we're gonna have a conversation a little bit later, right? Or give me an hour and we're gonna have a conversation about this, right? It helps, right? Rest is not quitting, right? Rest is just recovering with purpose. Main thing right there is rest is recovery with a purpose, right? Once you understand that resting has a purpose, you can understand escaping, right? Escape is essentially just avoidance with a better name, right? Procrastination with a better name, right? It usually sounds something along these lines, whether you're saying them out loud or in your head, right? I just need a break. I'm protecting my peace, quote unquote, right? I'm listening to my body. I'm burnt out. I deserve this, right? It's like, do you really deserve this? Are you really burnt out? Because you said that shit last week too, right? It's like, you said you wanted this. You knew it was going to be hard work. And now that you're actually having to do the work, you're quote unquote burnt out. It's like that pressure that you're feeling, you're using these lines to give yourself an out. Realize the goal that you want is admirable and admirable to the people that achieve it because it is hard, right? So realize that the hard work and the boring work isn't always going to be fun, but it is necessary. So yes, you do need a rest every now and then, but it doesn't mean you need a rest every single day, every single week, every single month. There's gonna be stretches of time where you don't rest because there's certain things that need to get done. And there's certain things that need to be accomplished within a time frame. And you need to get them done so you can achieve those goals, right? So if you're saying those things like I deserve this and stuff, what you really mean is I don't want to face this. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to look at the numbers today. I don't want to have that conversation with that person. I don't want to admit that I have fallen off track. Right? Rest restores. Escaping is you just hiding. And that's not going to solve any problem or move the needle for you in any manner for you to achieve the goals that you say that you want to achieve. Again, you say you want to achieve them. Do you really want it? Do you really want it? Right? Because it's important because the same action can either be either one, right? It could be a rest or it could be an escape. Same exact action, right? Watching a movie could be a rest, or it could be you escaping because you're just prolonging the fact that you need to do something. Watching 6 hours of random videos while ignoring your responsibilities is probably an escape. Taking off a day of training can be rest, but it could also be an escape because it's fucking leg day and you don't want to hit legs, right? Skipping the gym for a week, though, because you're avoiding the feeling of starting again, that's probably going to be an escape, right? Going for a walk, let's say, alone, outside, right? That could be a rest, or it could be an escape, right? But disappearing from everyone because you don't want to deal with the problems or the conversations. That's going to be the escape right there, right? The activity doesn't tell the whole truth, right? The intention does. And so what you have to do is analyze what the intention is of that action, of the thing that you're trying to do. You going on a vacation, right? It can be a rest. But if you're going on a vacation, every weekend, and not even a real vacation, like little mini vacations, and at the end of the day, it's becoming an escape. You're escaping your week, right? You're escaping all the hard things you had to do for the week, and you have to do for the next week, right? So, main thing how you test this of am I escaping or am I resting is how do you feel afterwards? How do you feel after that quote unquote rest? Do you feel clear, calmer, maybe more grounded, more ready, more in control? Because if so, that's going to mean that it was probably an actual rest. But if you feel a little bit foggy, a little bit guilty, anxious, behind, or disconnected, then what you called rest was actually an escape. Right? Rest gives you your life back. Right? Rest gives you more in the tank. Right? It gives you more fuel to push harder. Right? Where when you're escaping, though, it makes you want to avoid it longer. It makes you want to take that rest longer. So the important thing is really analyzing, how did I feel after this, right? Now, there is a long-term cost of escape, right? So in the short term, it might give you a little bit of relief, right? But in the long term, it creates pressure, right? When you avoid looking at the budget or or the money, right? The stress is only going to get worse, right? Because the problem doesn't go away. And if you don't know what's going on with your budget, with your money, it's not like it's going to magically fix itself, right? You avoid the workout. You avoid working out in general because I'm going to start Monday, or I'm going to start in January 1st, whatever the case may be. Well, the long-term cost of that is your confidence is going to continue to drop. One of the number one things that I hear when I sign people up for Strive 11 is confidence, right? Why did you want to come in today? I wanted to build my confidence, right? It's like, okay, well, why now? And it's because they've gotten to a point where now it's like, okay, like I don't feel comfortable in my own skin. And like it's hard to hear sometimes. It's like you feel bad. And like I commend the people for taking the step to come in. But then on the flip side, you hear the people that are like, okay, I'm going to start on Monday. It's like, you just told me that you wanted to build your confidence. Do you really want to do that, or are you just avoiding this? Like, let's get this fucking ball rolling, right? You avoid the sales calls, right? Your pipeline, your leads start to dry up. And then you start to bitch about how, your business or your commission checks or whatever aren't where they need to be. Well, it's like you're avoiding and you're escaping the hard work that's going to get you to where you need to be. You avoid the hard conversations because you don't want to have them. You don't want to be uncomfortable. You don't want the person to be uncomfortable. Well, guess what? Then the resentment grows and everybody starts to feel it. And then the situation gets worse. The environment gets worse and so forth, right? Big one, even for the gym, is like planning out your meals. I tell people, you need to plan ahead, right? You need to plan ahead. The reason being is, even if you need to change the game plan day of, at least you have a game plan for the day, and then you can mix and match as you go, but at least you can fall back on this. And so people will avoid or escape creating the meal plan for the week, and then all of a sudden, they aren't hitting their macros during the week, so they're escaping the work that needs to be done, and the long-term cost is they're not hitting their goals, they're staying at the same weight, and so forth, right? Long-term costs of not being prepared, right? One of the big words that I hear on like social media and stuff, even like in the gym, outside the gym, whatever, is like self-care, right? There's a self-care trap, I want to say, right? And this is the deeper mindset piece of this, right? Some people use healthy language, right? Or fitness language or self-care language, whatever you want to call it, to justify unhealthy behavior. I'll say that again. Some people will use healthy language or fitness-related language, right? Mindset-related language to justify unhealthy behaviors or actions. For example, I'm giving myself grace, right? I need a rest. I'm protecting my peace or my inner peace. I deserve this, right? That turns into never holding yourself accountable, right? That turns into skipping the hard shit that you need to do. It turns into you avoiding any feedback that might make you uncomfortable. That turns into choices that make Mondays harder for you, right? Self-care should not destroy your self-respect or your self-confidence, right? Fitness, for example, a real rest day is planned. It is in your week and you've already planned it out. It is not a spur of the moment, right? It's in the spur of the moment, you just avoided the workout for the day. That's all that was, right? It is planned, it supports your recovery, and it still protects the basics of what you're doing, right? It keeps the rhythm of what you're doing alive. A fall off day, though, is impulsive. It breaks your routine and it turns into maybe some poor food decisions, poor sleep, poor movement, and you end up having now no plan. And it makes tomorrow harder to get back on track. And that usually leads to, I'll start next week. I'll get back on in the beginning of the month, right? So a rest day helps you train better. A fall off day makes it harder to start again, right? A break should not break your standards. A break should not break your routine. A break should not, or a rest should not break your game plan, right? Business, for example, right? A real rest in business might look like stepping away for a few hours so that you can maybe think a little bit clearer on the situation. Maybe closing the laptop at night so you can make better decisions tomorrow. Come back with a clear mind, right? Taking Sundays off so that you have more energy on Monday, right? Going for a walk before making a big decision, right? Escape, though, in business looks like ignoring your CRM or ignoring the calls that you need to make, avoiding your follow-ups, refusing to look at your books, your numbers, delaying any hard conversations, staying busy on easy tasks when the real issues, the things that are going to move the needle, sit there day after day, right? Space is fine, but avoidance is expensive, right? So actually, we'll go one more. Mindset, right? You know, this is the Mindset Cafe and all. Mindset, you have to think there's essentially processing or numbing, right? Processing essentially is you slow down enough to understand what you feel, where numbing is you distract yourself so you don't have to feel it. I'll say that again. Processing is you slowing down, taking a second, taking a beat, so that you can understand what's going on in your mind. So you can understand what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, right? Numbing, on the other hand, just distracts you so you don't have to feel whatever you're feeling, right? So processing might look like something like journaling, going for a walk, praying, meditating, talking to someone about it, right? Or just sitting quietly without your phone. Me personally, at the end of when I was doing personal training, you know, I would work anywhere from 10 hours of actual personal training, not just, you know, at the gym, but actual training sessions, 10 to 16 hours in a day, you know, back-to-back clients. And at first I thought I did it because there's always music in the gym, right? And so I would always drive home in silence. And then I realized it was me essentially processing the day, right? Because I've had conversations with people for 10 to 16 hours in a day. I've listened to music for 10 to 16 hours in a day. And I just needed everything to be silent so my brain could just process and internalize the day. And then when I realized it was processing, that allowed me to also realize that like some of the conversations I had, I could have handled better. Or when someone told me something, I maybe just glazed over it and didn't really understand what they were trying to tell me or ask for help. So then the next day when I came back, like I made a note and then I came back and I was like, hey, yesterday when you said this, like, can you explain that? Like, I thought about it later and, you know, blah, 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 blah. And so all of a sudden it allowed me to process the day, right? Numbing, on the other hand, though, might look like endless scrolling on Instagram, right? Eating junk food because you deserve it, right? Impulse spending, binge watching, you know, Netflix or your show or whatever. Excess drinking, right? Staying busy so you never have to think. One builds awareness, the other one delays any kind of pain or discomfort. So again, processing builds awareness, but numbing, on the other hand, delays the pain or the discomfort that you're going to have to feel, right? So you have to realize that you need to internalize why you're doing it. How did you feel after the fact? Why do you feel it? Or why are you doing it? And then how do you feel after the fact, right? So one piece of advice is I would say ask better questions before you take that break or you take that rest, right? Take a second before you do it. What am I actually tired from? What am I avoiding? Am I avoiding anything? Will this help me come back better? Will I respect the choice tomorrow? Is this a rest or am I escaping? Ask the questions before you make the decision. Don't just ask if you need a break. Ask what kind of break you need, right? Build a plan with a rest in it so that you don't burn out, right? Most people wait until they're fried and then they start making bad decisions. And it's like, okay, well, shit, you could have avoided that by planning a rest day, right? Planning some recovery in the mix, right? One night a week with no work, or one walk with no phone, or one rest day from training, or one weekly calendar review, right? Whatever the case may be. One early night that you go to bed early instead of scrolling, right? Or what I would do is like the drive home in silence, right? Planned rest keeps you from needing to escape, right? Planned rest keeps you from needing to escape. Right? So the simple rule is if this helps you return stronger, then it's a rest. If this helps you avoid returning, it's an escape. That's it. If it helps you return stronger, it's a rest. If it helps you avoid or feel any discomfort or numbs, it's an escape. So my challenge for you this week is pick one area you've been calling a rest, or one action or thing you've been calling a rest, but deep down you know it's an escape. And it could be in your fitness, business, or professional life, in your finances, marriage, parenting, mindset, faith, whatever the case may be. And don't attack yourself for it. Don't make it, dramatic or all emotional. Just be honest, right? Realize that if you need to rest, then rest. But stop running away from your problems or the issues or the discomfort and calling it recovery, right? Real rest brings you back stronger. It brings you back more clear. Escape just keeps you away from doing the things that you need to do, even though you know you need to do them. Know the difference, because one is going to restore you and the other is going to quietly start to deteriorate you. I hope this episode helped you guys, and hopefully that you guys can internalize and ask, am I escaping or am I actually recovering? If you guys need anything, feel free, reach out, DM me. But I appreciate you guys. I love y'all. Thank you guys so much for the support. Make sure you guys send this episode to a friend who is always telling you that they are burnt out. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Vibes, only positive thoughts, just in the game of life, mindset causes shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking. I hustle harder, I go against the current, cause I know I'm the